Woohoo! I'm excited to talk about this one. As a resident gear and tech nerd here at the Running Channel, there is a question I get more than any other question. What sport watch should I get? Actually, ultimately what it comes down to is what the hell is the difference between a sport watch and a smartwatch? The best way to demonstrate the differences and to show you that it isn't quite as easy to define anymore is to use these two watches, the Apple Watch Ultra and the Garmin Forerunner 965, its best and brightest. But it isn't quite as simple as one watch versus the other, as it's more about what the companies are trying to create, their future intentions and the user experience as a whole. So let me explain. To demonstrate what I mean, I'm going to go a bit Russell Crowe and Beautiful Mind here, but bear with me. So here are smartwatches, starting with the Pebble, a crowdfunder smartwatch that I, along with hundreds others, decided to chip in and fund way back in April 2012. Yes, I have always been this geeky. It ended up raising $10 million, a huge record for the platform at the time. It was an e-paper display, and it was one that was first to have an app store, display notifications, and crucially, very, very limited, and not accurate at all, sport metrics. So to compare like for like in the time period, we have to go to the Forerunner 220. This had a color display, could track treadmill sessions as well as track sessions. Heart rate monitor was also inbuilt. You could also sync with your phone and use live track so your friends and family could see where they are during a run. But ultimately, had no direct interaction with your smartphone. Flash forward to 2016, and this is where the two camps really start to properly creep into each other's area with the release of the Apple Watch Series 2. I'm saying 2 because the 0 and 1 had no GPS. They released a model partnered with Nike Plus app, and that's kind of when everything started to change. Garmin released the 735 XT with a Strava link up, which also had notifications, but crucially, the big divide between the two camps was in battery life and screen quality. Over the years since, each release from the brands have brought them closer and closer together, with the Ultra and the 965 bringing them the closest they've ever been, with the Ultra aimed at endurance athletes by addressing the battery life, and the 965 and 265 introducing an AMOLED screen. Crucially though, there are still 5 huge gaps between the two brands, and these will ultimately dictate where you end up buying. So I'm going to go for a run and explain more about this. So the first key point is the price. And while the watches have got more and more comparable over the years, the actual pricing still is pretty monumental. So to buy a watch that is comparable to the Garmin Forerunner 965, which is $599, you're spending £849 for the Apple Watch Ultra. And to get a watch that kind of looks and feels like the Apple Watch, you'd be looking at the Garmin Venue Squared 2, which is $229, so massive gap. And there's a point to Garmin. So the next point is actually the data that it gives you. And here, while they track the similar sort of things, heart rate, training readiness, sleep score, women's health, etc., how they actually give you that data is wildly different. And here I feel like the Apple Watch is much more of a passive advisor, giving you the data but not necessarily telling you what it actually means, whereas Garmin's a lot more direct. It will tell you, hey, you didn't sleep well, so your training might not be as good as you hoped. Here sort of Apple is a lot more motivating in terms of getting out and exercising by closing those 3 rings it gives you every day, whereas Garmin gives you the training suggestions and how to actually get your training done to ready for a race that you've got coming up or just training in general. The next one is more of a personal gripe and how touchscreens are becoming more and more used. I'm quite a sweaty runner, as Eminem once put it, I get sweaty palms. So actually being able to switch off the touchscreen, which you can do on the Garmin, is great because you don't accidentally press buttons, or if you're trying to press something, you do it deliberately. Whereas I find with the Apple Watch, the sweatier I get or the wetter my clothes get, you either don't press the thing you're trying to press or accidentally press something you're not trying to press. So actually moving in to the next point is a huge multiple win for Apple, and that is for the ecosystem itself. Apple owns the ecosystem basically for most users through their phones, so they can maximize it for themselves and limit it for other users. So actually being able to interact with all your notifications and everything else, the features that are provided, you can do all that on the Apple Watch at replying to things using Siri, whereas obviously with the Garmin, you're not able to do that. You do get the notifications, but there isn't much interaction you can actually do with them. And the next bit is customization. So what you can do on Garmin is a lot more nerdy. You have to drill in to Connect IQ and find the things you actually want to be editing and finding the widgets that actually work alongside with it. Whereas again, Apple has the App Store, which is completely easy to use because you already know what it looks like from using your iPhone. And the next point in this battle is Apple Pay. And to demonstrate this, I'm gonna need to go and catch a tube. So here you can see using Apple Pay to get on the tube is really easy thanks to their express use of Apple Pay. Whereas with the Garmin, it's a lot more difficult to even access the pay system, having to input a password. The battery life is kind of the key consideration I have whenever I'm buying a watch. Because I take on ultra distances, I need a watch that's going to last, 100k, 100 miles. But
That means I would never have looked at the Apple Watch before. Well, the Apple Watch Ultra now boasts 36 hours of regular use, 12 hours of GPS mode, and up to 60 hours in this low power mode. But that means that the feature set that you would get is substantially limited. But when you're doing an Ultra, you need all that information to inform what you're doing when it comes to those runs, because it is so strategy based, making sure you can actually get to the finish line in one piece. Here, well, the Garmin will always blow Apple out of the water with the current technology it has. The 965 has a 23-day regular use versus that 36 hours and 21 hours in GPS mode. So, you know, there's stark differences there. So there's a very easy win for the Garmin. I actually did a review where I took the Apple Watch Ultra out for an ultra marathon and showed exactly how it reacted in terms of the battery life and the features I got. And well, to see more about that, better head to the link up there. Another key point when it comes to the battery life is, well, actually, the Apple Watch Ultra doesn't have some of the features that you get from the box in a Garmin watch. So you have to download third-party apps, like the mapping example, and to use those apps uses more battery life. So the actual regular use in GPS mode doesn't reflect the use of apps like Go Outdoors, which you can use to map your actual run, rather than using the Apple Compass app, which is very limited, only using drop points and breadcrumb marking, whereas the 965 has complete mapping, which will help you get from A to B very simply.
So ultimately what it comes down to is the final point, and I have left the most controversial to last, and I can kind of already feel the comments coming in, but it comes down to personal preference and taste. So when I first started running, I wore a Garmin and an Apple Watch. I enjoyed the features of the Apple Watch. I enjoyed how it looked while I was out and about, and I wore the Garmin for, well, the sports side of things. And now that Garmin have closed the gap, I tend to just wear a Garmin. I enjoy the conversation starter it has when you're like at a wedding and you're wearing one and people go, hey, are you a runner? Sure, you get the benefits of the stronger integration with your phone and with apps with the Apple Watch, and it is a statement piece. But as an ultra runner, I would tend to always lean towards the Garmin now, because I need that battery life and need the features that come with it. So I'd have to give the final point to the Garmin. But what do you guys think in terms of look and personal taste? Which one would you choose? Ultimately, to answer the question of what is the difference between a sports watch and a smartwatch, well, sport watches will put sports first and features second, whereas the smartwatch will put the smart features first and the sports second. I do think that come 2025, this definition will be harder and harder to do. There will be this one watch to rule them all, but will it be a sports watch or a smartwatch? Well, let us know which sport watch or smartwatch you're using in the comments down below, and while you're here, don't forget to watch me reviewing the Apple Watch Ultra in an ultra marathon.